Thank you very much, Fintan. Thank you. Okay, so we'll go straight into the questions. So if I can just ask you, Rich, to come here and just say your name and.
Hello, Fintan. My name's Richard. This is the second talk I've attended of yours, and I think you're great. It's really great to hear from you again. I just wondered if you could speak a little bit more to one of the points you mentioned, but you didn't really go into much detail. The emergence of gold, well, re-emergence, I suppose is the right way of putting it, of gold-backed currencies, which, and please correct me if I'm being wrong here, which in general people would consider to be a good thing. However, you link that to the emergence of digital currencies, which many people may consider to be a bad thing because they can be controlled by governments a lot more than, like cash and things. So I wondered if maybe you could talk to those points, but also just go into a bit more depth as to how this particular topic relates to what is going to be happening to the world over the next few years, please. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely, Richard. And thanks very much for the question. That's a great question. And yeah, I'm happy to elaborate on that because it bears elaboration and it's fairly straightforward. What's happening is that it's not so much that we're going to get gold emerging as a sort of currency in any way, but more so that in the short term, at least, gold is going to be there to back digital trading instruments. So trading and the money used for trading is going to be decoupled from spending and the money used for spending. See? So that's a decoupling which is going to take place. And I hope that's being insightful in terms of looking and seeing the underlying structural shift. So, and the reason for that is this, that when I sell some stuff to you and we agree a price, and I might only be making a 5% margin, maybe 4%, 3% margin on that. I don't want to then have to wait and take time to get my money. And by the time it comes time to get my money, your currency has depreciated 7% against mine. And now I'm after losing 3% on that transaction. No. When I trade with you, I want to know that we're trading like that and we're against gold as the agreed underlying asset structure that we're all priced against. So my convertibility back to gold on that trade is 100%, less the little fee for the transaction, which is nothing. So that's going to revolutionize trading using gold-backed digital trading instruments. And then that leaves the question of, okay, well, now if you've stabilized currencies from the point of view of trading, you can inflate them from the point of view of buying and selling at the retail consumer and those levels without it now affecting the trading structure. Well, everybody's happy. However, as you've identified there, the control structures which then become possible using these digital ideas, when you take that to and start applying it to people, you have huge potential for control there. And I don't know. As I say, I don't see that that's a big threat to it because non-compliance will render that useless. And also there's difficulty in drilling down to the individual transaction level. It's much more likely that what you would see is that you would get a parallel structure emerging, which has to emerge because of the economics of what's going on. We have to get a guaranteed income in this sense. Hopefully, I'll go beyond the usual here. See, every baby is born a millionaire on the planet. Every baby on the planet is born a millionaire. And by the time it is a toddler, it should be wheeled into the local bank manager, the dummy pulled out of its mouth, and let it go there and speak up for itself, which translates into, I want a loan of $1 million. Thank you very much. Because I'm going to generate at least $1 million. And that's a low ball figure, probably 2 million, probably more like it if I'm quite successful, in productive, generative capital for society. Me, brand new baby. If you doubt that, take out life insurance on me for, say, 2 million. And if anything happens to me on the way to making all that 2 million, for you out there working away, repaying you on the 2 million you advance me, well, then you can claim on the policy. So it's to win either way. I am worth 2 million. And here's the deal I'm offering. I'm offering 1 million. For 1 million, you got me. So every baby's a millionaire. That's the central bank of you. But the central bankers have taken that away from you. The central bankers have said, no, I tell you what, we're going to take your birth information and your future generative income power, and we're going to subsume that into the structure of the state, and then we're going to indebt the entire state. And then we're going to suck all of that productive capacity of you into that structure. So that's what we have to aim for. And that's the true nature of a guaranteed basic income, which is that what the baby actually says is, well, I don't want the million up front. What I want is, I want my piece of the action. I'm entitled to care. I'm entitled to education. I'm entitled to housing. Why? Because I have a stake in this, and this society is going to benefit from my participation. So I'm worth investing in. And it's that level, granular level of individual and individually centered financial structure that we have to move to. Using that, we can help everybody to get a fair share if we restructure that. Because the unmentioned that no candidates are talking about is that as part of the Thatcher-Reagan revolution, they took the power of that printing press off of the people and they gave it to bankers, and ends up governments borrowing from bankers. No, bankers are subservient to and secondary to the government, which is government of the people, for the people, and that's the central bank of the people. So that's what we need. And anything less than that is just a continuation of the scam when they took that printing press off the people. Why? They said, no, you can't leave the printing press with politicians. They're irresponsible. They'll just abuse it. You have to give it to bankers. Yeah, no, that's the part we have to reverse. And the key to that is to take it not back to the state, which is again, not back to the individual, but to take that central banking and the ability to be the productive source. The gold which backs your personal currency is your capabilities, and that's cashable, and it is your birthright, not something to be granted to you, but your birthright. Thanks, Richard. /rant.
Great question. Thank you, Fintan. Next, Tom. Yep, Tom has a question.
Hi, Fintan. Tom here.
Cheers.
I gave a talk to this group a couple of weeks ago, and I'm pretty certain that you were watching. In fact, you asked me a question,
Yeah.
and I've got this. I'm going to ask you back exactly the same question, if I can remember it correctly. So the question that you asked me, which came out a bit out of left field for me, I hadn't thought about it at all, was to do with if I believed that the productivity gains from AI would I'm not exactly certain of the question, but I'm going to repeat my understanding of it. And you are asking if they would come in time to save some of the pain that we might see in relation to the banking crisis. And my answer to that was, no, I think the banking crisis is coming very fast at us, and we haven't got time to get out of the way. But at the time, I thought you were implying that the productivity gains were already accruing. But from what you said tonight, I think it's the other way around. First, that the productivity gains will come later, or at least to the people, and we're going to see job losses first, which will contribute to a bigger recession from the banking collapse. Would you agree with that statement, or how would you see it differently?
Okay, great question again. It's intersecting with the same thing and from another direction, Tom. So yeah, the productivity gains, you see, the whole way that we've been structuring things, like as in recession, interest rates, much of it is absolute BS. For example, raising interest rates to curb inflation. That's actual nonsense. It's complete and utter nonsense. Oh, but Paul Volcker broke inflation with interest 80%. No. It's not. So that's rubbish. So when they raise interest rates like that, that's lower interest rates, like that's bad for the economy, and raising it is good for the economy in that old style of economy. But that old style of economy was a growing economy of a growth period, and we have done the growth. So we're in a different situation now. We're in a whole different situation now. And now, for example, all of what's counted in GDP that's involved in medical care is a net negative. It's all money down the tube. It's a waste of money. Every single penny is a net negative, and yet that's counted in GDP as if it's a positive. Yeah, it's a positive if we want to end up in a situation where half the country is caring for the other half of the country who are now disabled, which is where we're headed. Excuse me. But that ain't economic growth. But it is for pharma. And if we end up in a situation where half of the nation is caring for the other half, the autism rates, look at them, 1 in 10 for Black children, 1 in 35 for the rest. And that's just climbing and climbing relentlessly. Look at the type 2 diabetes rates through the roof. This is going to end in absolute calamity. And just, we'll be talking productivity. I mean, if half the country is looking after the other half of the country, who the hell is doing any work? And there are certain things you have to do. So we need these productivity gains because of the actual medical structure that we're inheriting. And, the train is so big and moving so fast that even copping onto it now, it'll be 10 years before it slows down, 15. And so the pressures will be huge there. So it's no longer about recession, this, that, the other. The purpose of an underlying economy is to render labor that nobody wants to do no longer necessary to do. Is to make as many people unemployed at jobs that they already hate doing, and instead to allow them to move into things that they would like to do. And that's re-engineering. And refusing to do that is like saying, look, we're going to melt down these JCBs because it just puts too many people with shovels out of business. No, we can't do it. That's stupid. Who wants to spend their day shoveling? No. We invented JCB, and if it puts loads of shovelers out of business, that's it. And so all of this technology is on the same basis. It's about freeing us up to have the time to spend with the people we care about. That's the fundamental, and to provide us with the fundamentals of life. So that's the underlying requirement of an economy. And we're looking at 3-day weeks, let alone 4-day weeks, by the time AI is finished with this. This AI is just amazing what it's going to do. And as I say, it's out of the box. So yeah, I hope that explains how the financial architecture is changing so much that the entire supply-demand recession, inflation, boom, bust thing is just all of that's like over.
Thank you, Fintan. Good question, Tom. Hikarus? Yeah. This is a question from Hikarus.
Hello, and thank you very much for your exposition. You mentioned before that these two candidates that are going to be in the next 2024 election of the U.S., I believe it's in November of next year, of 2024. These two candidates are not controlled by the system, right?
Yeah.
Well, and you mentioned at a certain point that the attempt of global manipulation of the world is backfiring, and these two, whoever ends up elected. My question is, how significantly do you think these guys are going to change, or whoever sits in the throne of the United States is going to significantly change the global politics of NATO, especially, and all the vassal states of the United States, so that the whole global tendency changes? Like, how much of it do you think is going to change, and in what period of time? Because I come from Spain and France, and at this point, I tell you that certain countries, certain European countries are on the brink of total destruction. In Spain, in a few months, it will be war or destruction. So it's for us a lot of hope to see that from the source of this international policy, that might be a change with these two guys, if they're not murdered. Because also many times I think, you know, the establishment has you know, gotten rid of anybody who bothered them at a certain point. So what's stopping them from murdering this guy or the other guy? But in case one of these two sat, you know, as the president of the United States, what hope do you think there is of changing the global policy of control, giving a space to those countries that are subdued at this moment? You know, how profound do you think these guys can make of a change? And in how much, you know, what is the period of time? Because, like I say, some countries are like, they have the water to the level where they're about to be absolutely drowned. Thank you very much.
Yeah, great question. Great question, because it brings it down to the actual realities of the political situation right now. I think what's happening is that the underlying situation has already moved past the point of no return. Globalism is dead. It's dead. It's dead. It's buried. The globalist class, they stumble on, you know, the media apparatus wrapped around them stumbles on, and they go through the motions, but now lacking any ideology of any kind, and also facing the reality that when you look at the actual percentage of the world's population that is part of either the BRICS plus, or the Gulf states plus, BRICS plus, Turkey plus, Russia plus, and add it all up, it's damn well near 70% of the global population has already jumped ship to it, you know? And that's the geopolitical realities of the situation. So Trump is signaling those new realities in some of his policies, where he talks about it's time to rebuild America and reinvest, and, you know, all that, make America, bring the jobs back home. Yeah, because that's the reality of it, is that the whole idea of globalization is over. The globalization idea was actually an attempt, a spider's web attempt. The idea was, well, look, we'll open up the Western financial architecture to the globe and let's all get wealthy together. We'll extend the net out with the hope of actually controlling through that net. And as it became apparent to them that rebellion was going on in the net because of the sort of social human developments that are taking place, they tried to reverse it. It was too late now. That financial network they created is breaking free of them. And the technologies and all the rest of it are now out of their hands. And the new realities is they're no longer in control, dude. So Trump is already signaling, and whoever gets in will already have to deal with the realities that globalization is over. And that there's also huge political resistance by people to any takeover of the financial system and any more of the medical mafia stuff that they've been going on with. So they're sort of boxed into a corner. And I think we'll see new policies emerge. Thanks for the question.
So thank you very much for your answer. So this is a very important factor. I think it's crucial. So what percentage, how strong do you think is the people's support overall in the planet to the resistance, and the people's awareness overall? Because I think a crucial factor in this whole change of circumstances, this whole possibly turn around of the situation, is that there has to be enough percentage of the world population that are aware of this and that actually oppose it. Because if people don't know it, they're gonna keep on doing what they've always done. So do you think at this point, with all the damage they've been doing, there is enough percentage of the world population that is aware and fed up with this, so that they're going to we're going to see a resistance from the people, because it doesn't matter whoever sits in a throne. If people are not aware and people do not resist, there's nothing to do. So do you think that people are ready for a world revolution, to take down this attempt of coup?
Yeah. Okay, well, it's good to flesh it out. I think that there's no need for global revolution, because global revolution also died with globalism. There is going to be no more it thing that happens everywhere. And already, as I say, 70% of the population of the planet has jumped ship. I mean, if you go across Africa, for example, all the African countries that matter are with Russia on this issue. And there are many countries who are with Russia who don't say it. And the only reason they don't say it is because they know the Americans will bust their balls for it. They do that, but they're actually in direct support. So, like, internationally, that's all over. It's a question that then within the G7 countries, now that's a whole different ballgame. So, for example, say the United Kingdom. What hope is there for a revolution in the United Kingdom? None. The political structure at the heart of the New World Order in the UK is totally controlled on both sides and at the top in every which way. And there is no escaping that. No escaping that. They're totally in control of the United Kingdom, and I can't see that changing, because the propaganda level is just so intense there and always has been. In the United States, there is the awakening on the right, which is the transformative awakening and a return to common sense. And it's the foundation of the new pragmatic center. So there, I'm very optimistic, hugely optimistic there. And also in, France, Spain, Italy, these nations which are tired of being part of the new Germanic Empire, are going to assert themselves. And the economics of all this is about to shift. Australia and New Zealand, I don't see much potential there either. Very, very high propaganda levels. They lack the independence of political thought, which we have in Europe. But if you look, say, at Pakistan, you can see the awakening there already, where the dogs in the street know the manipulations of the New World Order and trying to get rid of Imran Khan because he dared not, bang the US drum enthusiastically, and because they can't afford to let another to the BRICS, So they're going down, dude. But that doesn't mean they're going to lose power in specific G7 nations where they have historic basis. And the people of the United Kingdom, for example, have a long road ahead of them to get any kind of real independent politics. We'll see. I'm not very hopeful of it. Too much propaganda. But in the United States and in some European countries, I'm very, very positive. And also in Eastern Europe as well. This whole debacle in Ukraine is going to turn into a huge, NATO's already dead. They're just like pretending they're not for political reasons. It's over. Cheers, dude.
Thank you, Fintan. Thank you, Carlos. Good question. Tenzing?
Hello. Are you familiar with Eustace Mullins or Edward Griffin?
Yes, I am. Yeah, not hugely, though. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, so you're not a fan of either of their works?
Well, no, I'm not an avid reader, but I read, encyclopedically. So I'm aware of a lot of people at different levels. But go ahead anyway on the topic or the issue.
Well, I would just like to get an idea of what you mean by sort of anti-establishment, because you are aware Joseph Kennedy is a Knight of Malta, and JFK's sister, Kathleen, married the Duke of Devonshire. The Duke of Devonshire is a direct descendant of one of the original founders of the Bank of England. So I don't know. I mean, JFK went to the London School of Economics, which was created by the Fabian Society when David Rockefeller was teaching there. He was a huge proponent of foreign aid. He was a huge supporter of the IMF and the World Bank. So I don't know what you mean by RFK Jr. is anti-establishment. That makes no sense. Connor, his son, was already fighting in Ukraine. And you have pretty much every aspect of JFK's policies dovetailed with the New World Order. This whole idea that he was going to a gold-backed currency, that's been proven wrong by Edward Griffin himself. He was never intended to do that. And then the other idea is Trump as well. The fact that Trump is anti-establishment, again, he met with Jamie Bamford. Jamie Bamford is the current Duke of Marlborough, whose ancestor created the Bank of England. So then you have the BRICS nations. Every single BRICS nation, including China, is a member of the Bank of International Settlements. So, you know, China has the Chinese People's Institute of Foreign Affairs, which was created by Chatham House. The KGB was created by MI6. Did you know that? And so Putin was basically an MI6 agent. So this whole idea that Putin is fighting the New World Order, that Kennedy is fighting the New World Order, that Trump is fighting the New World Order is completely wrong. And you really need to do some reading because you just explained it yourself. You haven't done any reading. I'm sorry. But okay. So please, can you? Okay, I got it. Can you please characterize what you mean by anti-establishment? Because there's nothing in their policies. Trump, just in his short term in office, 4 years, oversaw the biggest transfer of wealth that any U.S. president saw. Because Obama's bailout was $1 trillion, and Donald Trump's was $8.5 trillion, signed by Nancy Pelosi. So you really need to examine like what you mean by anti-establishment. Okay, sorry. I'm sorry. Could you please state what is anti-establishment about JFK Jr. and BRICS? Because as far as we already know, the whole yeah, okay. What are your thoughts on that? What are your thoughts of the fact that every single BRICS nation, including South Africa, you have Mandela, who is the Knights of Malta, an agent of the Western banking establishment. You have India, which was created by the Indian independence movement, was created by Britain. So, at what point in time did these nations supposedly break away? I mean, I know that's the narrative, and you're going to tell me, oh yeah, well, they're ditching the US dollar. But at what point will you say that maybe you're wrong?
So, good question, long question, because it plays into a lot of the bullshit that's been spewed out by the CIA over the last, well, 20, 25 years. Basically, they've owned the internet, and they own that perspective which you have just outlined. They create that. They make that as persuasive as possible as a model of looking at the world in order to say that, well, look, we're everywhere and everything's all controlled by them. So being a member of the Bank of International Settlements does not make you part of some cabal. The truth is the Bank of International Settlements is just a coordinating body for banking structures globally. There has to be some kind of coordination. You're right about the roots of all these things lying in intelligence agencies and Fabian societies, secret societies and all that, what doesn't and what hasn't ever. But this is not back then, because we've had political evolution. We've had changes in political. It used to be when you were in control of structures like the ones you're talking about, you ruled everything because there was no mass media. You controlled all media. There was no independent voices of any kind. And so that translated into political power. Nobody knew what was going on behind the scenes. The idea that JFK was like to be regarded as merely a globalist, well, it denies the question of why they shot him, why they blew his freaking head off, why they blew his brother's head off. Because they're ruthless, bloody killers. You know, there are people, and then there are the most ruthless, evil bunch of people you ever came across in your life, who were the ones who were behind that kind of murder. And that tracks right back into the Bushes, into Prescott Bush, who initiated, along with his buddies, World War II, funded Hitler. So the Bushes' fingerprints are all, they run back as far as World War II in this. And so it is, all I can say in terms of Trump is, as the Bushes will tell you, the rest of them, the whole family, he goddamn broke Barbara Bush's heart because she thought that Jeb was going to get in. And Trump took them all out. Yeah, Trump moves in circles. At the end of the day, he's a pushy fucker who's out for himself. And anyone tries to cross him, no matter who they are, he'll go up against him. That's what makes him an asshole, and he makes him a useful asshole, our useful asshole. Because the big problem we have is not who started which there, the other society. It's the fact the intelligence services have been in complete control of the US political system ever since they killed Kennedy. And all of the subsequent presidencies have been their presidencies, one after the other, including the Clintons, who were just working for the Bushes. Everybody just working for the Bushes until Junior got back in again so they could stage the big operation where they would stage a 20-year war against the rest of the planet, triggered by 9/11, which they orchestrated. So these are the key dynamics, and it is them that's going down. It is their 20-year war that's imploding, as Vladimir Putin, who was never a member of Klaus's inner circle, never a young global leader. He showed up at meetings. He smiled and said all the nice things while he offered to play ball on a we all win basis with the West. But everybody knew, not just Putin, everybody knew from 9/11 on what was the game as they went after country, as they took out Libya, Syria, and all the rest of it, one after the other, as they went into Afghanistan, Iraq, and the whole 20-year war kicked off. Everybody knew. And then 2008, when they screwed everybody with the financial structures with these fake instruments that were worth nothing, everybody knew that they were also going to screw them on the entire money that everybody's owed out of the US Treasury. And so everybody got ready to jump ship, including Russia. And they waited. And they have been building up the army in Ukraine over the, I think everybody who knew anything didn't know that. What they've been doing in Ukraine, didn't know well that they were going to go into Ukraine, that they were going to invade, that they were going to start a war. Everybody knew. And they prepared for it. And then when it happened, they jumped ship. And Russia didn't implode financially. And the entire New World Order dream of trying to use the COVID, Psy-war everybody, start a war, take Russia out, and then go after China. It's over. Those are the political dynamics that matter. And that's the lens through which I see it, without getting bogged down in defending each individual point there. So, but thanks for the question.
Okay. Thank you, Tenzing. Thank you. Okay. Do we have time for one or two questions? So, as you know what I'm going to say. Forgive me for a minute, Fintan. Okay. The rules of engagement. Keep your question short. If you need background information to proceed in the question, keep it short, succinct. Okay? Kayla, you want to go? Having said that,
hi, Fintan. Thanks for the talk.
Cheers.
I think my question is, and I appreciate it, but your optimism that the New World Order is done for, I want to understand where that comes from, because the way that I see it is, yes, you know, the whole pandemic thing has helped wake a lot of people up to how things actually work. But then what I see is the legislation being quietly pushed through, like the WHO legislation for the next pandemic. And you've got the evil protagonist like Gates already talking about the next pandemic as though this is a normal thing when we know it came from a lab now. So the way that I see it is, if the propaganda doesn't work on a population anymore, the next method is control by force. And what I see now is the legislation being put into place to ensure that if the next crisis comes, that the laws will be in place that we can be controlled by force if the propaganda doesn't work. And that's what's scaring me, as well as things like Bill Gates buying up all the farmland. So I just want to know where your optimism comes from, that this kind of globalist threat is over. And is it not potentially that we're in an echo chamber together? And also, just like in Cambodia, what's going to replace that? And is it going to be essentially any better? Or are we going to go into like a Handmaid's Tale type dystopia? I don't know how many questions that was, so thank you for listening.
No, that's a great question. And Handmaid's Tale dystopia is a great place to start, but I'll leave it to the end, actually. Just don't let me forget it. But, you know, my optimism arises out of the fact that the element of surprise in war, as Sun Tzu would say, is everything. And so we never saw him coming. And before we knew it, not only were we in the middle of COVID, but that was followed up by a war that nobody saw coming either. And suddenly we were like a million miles away from the society we thought we lived in because of these things, and we didn't see it coming. And they had complete information dominance, and they had everybody scared, and they had us banned off, and they got rid of us. This was before Odyssey could get going and Rumble could get going and all the rest of it. They threw you off of Facebook and Twitter and YouTube. You were gone. You didn't exist. They had huge information dominance. And they had all that momentum and power of the emergency and all the rest of it. And what happened? We got out on the streets. We got our memes going. We persuaded our friends, or enough of them, because what matters ever is not that you reach the majority of the people. And we have to stop thinking in terms of majority when you're at the kind of leading edge that you folks are at, because you wouldn't bother your time listening to me if I wasn't, and you weren't at that leading edge. Because at the leading edge, those dynamics don't matter. What has always mattered is, can you get, say, 95% of the population to go along with something? Really go along with it. Then the 5%, I'm telling you, they're literal toast. They will be put in ovens and toasted. But if you can't persuade the skeptical 20% of the average population, the skeptical 20%, if that drops to 10%, we're in danger territory. If the skeptical 20% goes up to skeptical 30%, we're in bloody revolution territory. Because it is the skeptics, the change agents, the skeptics are the ones who just don't buy everything automatically. And you don't have to win a majority in order to generate enough skepticism that, as you saw, our memes were funnier. You know, and they spread to people who were our political opponents, who ended up seeing them without we even wanted to see them, because their friend who is anti-vax sent them this thing, and it's anti-vax cartoon, but it's really funny and it's true as well. You sort of get the truth of it immediately without someone having to explain it to you. And so that's how we won the propaganda war. So when they had everything going for them, and we weren't even organized, we beat them. We beat them on the entire agenda. It's all been backed off of. The whole thing then has turned into a disaster that they're trying to backpedal away from, because the health consequences of the disaster are going to become manifest, and they know that. It's like just going to take time to play out. So no, their big play didn't work. And the danger for them would be that if they were to try that again, that there are so many people already pretty much sort of clued in that that was like deliberate, and that that was, you know, a biowarfare thing, that there would be a huge and angry response from the skeptical 20%. They would go nuts. And you don't need 20% to have a revolution. You only need about 5. So 20 who were going nuts because they were saying, fuck, if we're having this again, will be terminal for them. So no, they had their chance. Fortunately, they lost.
Wow. The Handmaid's Tale.
The Handmaid's Tale is propaganda. It's New World Order propaganda aimed at women to reinforce separation between women and men. It's the divide and conquer. It's been the whole agenda of the feminist movement to use it as a divide and conquer. And the Handmaid's Tale is just like the oppression handle. Oppression, oppression, oppression. But don't worry, we're the state. We'll save you from it. Men are so oppressive. You need us instead. That's The Handmaid's Tale. It's pure propaganda. It's rubbish. It's one of the reasons why I haven't watched, mainstream television in decades.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Fintan. I think we've taken enough of your time.
Cheers.
Big hand. Thank you.
That's a great note to end on. And, thanks to everybody there. And I'd just like to say thanks for your interest. Thanks for your questions. And I do appreciate that long and emotional question, because, it's good to have strong emotions about these issues, but it's also important to be very careful about the political spin you might be getting from a lot of the internet, because they knew the internet was going to be a source of information, and they've contaminated it hugely, so that huge amounts, as in 90% of what you get on conspiracy media, has elements of disinformation just layered into it. So I'm happy to take the time to try and cut through some of that. And I do appreciate all the questions. And I would like to dedicate my contribution today to Enzo, RIP. And thank you very much, Patrick.
So thank you. So Fintan, I have a request from Kevin.
Fintan, thank you very much. Always a pleasure. You speak very well and very insightful. If you were to leave this presentation on a more so positive note, given the excuse me, you're not seeing me. If you were to leave the group after this, which is a very insightful conversation for sure, and I love the way you answered the questions from the group. Very good questions, but also the way you handled them too, and managed to explain your version of those responses was fantastic.
Thanks.
If you were to leave us on one positive note moving forward in the short term, 3 to 6 months, what would that be? Thank you, Kevin.
AI. And it's a good note to conclude on, because I would suggest you begin to empower yourself with that. You can get a thing called Talk to GPT, which will enable you to actually talk to the thing rather than having to type every question. And I cover that in the video, which you'll find on my Odyssey channel. And the reason I'm suggesting that, and the reason why I suggest you start displaying an interest in all that, is because you can actually start to use that technology to empower yourself. It's always the downside for any of the control structures is, as much as they try and control with what they do, at the same time, they're providing us with the very tools we need. If you have the intelligence and initiative to do that, to empower yourself and start to suck information and assistance and empower yourself in what you're doing with this thing, which is an offshoot of their structure. And so I'd say that's the most optimistic, is that as that develops more and more, it'll develop very quickly. And the quicker you're into it, the quicker you're going to be able to leverage it as it gets better and better and become better and better yourself. And it will actually improve your personal productivity, and it will get you information if you start to go to some videos and start to look at how to interact with it as well. I'll be doing some content on all of that because I think it's that promising. And I've been in the IT business since Apple. And this is the most exciting thing since the smartphone. It's that revolutionary. And it's going to change the way you interact with computers. You're not going to be using keyboards very soon. You're just going to be talking to, AI creatures who talk back to you. And if you know how to leverage that, then as that technology develops, you can benefit as well in education and also in empowering your productive ability yourself. That's my big positive. That technology is in our hands, folks, and the establishment hasn't been able to keep it to themselves. It's going to be no big brother out of this. It's AI for everybody. Okay. Thanks very much, folks, for your time.
Thank you very much, Fintan, and a big hand. Thank you for the questions. Thank you.